That's right. We're celebrating Jesus whole year, you know. It's 8:11 a.m. on a terrific Tuesday. We are truly having a terrific Tuesday. If you're not feeling terrific, we're speaking it into existence. You will have a terrific Tuesday today. And of course, as I mentioned to you earlier, we have our Movember series, our men's mental health series happening throughout this entire month. And, you know, based on the conversation behind the scenes, it seems like it might be something ongoing, you know. My God. Today we are talking about why men don't speak. And we ask the question, Sky Family, is it that men don't speak up? Or is it that women aren't listening? We do have our special guest in the building, Jessie McBarrow. Yeah, and we're going to have that conversation. I want to play first a voice note that came in. And I want to read a message that came into the question as well, too. So Sham is saying this is because women always talking. Not all women, but when it's our time to talk, that's men. Women don't listen. And then Redo sent a voice note. I want to get that on the inside before we bring in Jessie.
Blessed morning, Dom. Blessed morning, Sky Family. I like your question this morning, Dom. Nice. Listen, why men don't speak? All right? Men don't speak because a couple of things. One, women don't listen. As I said, but a lot of women don't listen. Two, a man supposed to be the strong tower in the house. Right? He would take his load and then hold the woman's load too. Listen to her. And so when you try to talk with your woman, they can't take it. They can't handle your load. You're weak. Watch here, you're a girl, you're a Macaulay man. You break down. But man is human too. Men are human too. A man is a human. Although he is strong and man, you have to do everything we have to do around the house and do what you have to do and take care of everything else. But he's human too. Right? And one of the main things, the woman tends to think the man weak. Right? He's less of a man. So a man wouldn't talk, he just hold it, deal with it, and make it through. Make it through the hell of high water. And the man will say, that's my thought actually, right?
Thank you so much for sharing, Sham, as well as Redo. This morning we're introducing in studio, we had him last week via Zoom, but in studio joining us, author, speaker, and mindset coach, Jessie McBarrow, is in the building, live in studio to have this conversation. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Sky Family. I am at home.
You're at home.
I said that last week, and I really mean that.
I like that.
I'm so happy to be here once again to have this very, very deep and insightful conversation.
Nice. And this is for you one time as well, too. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you very much for being here with us. So I know we're talking some interesting things today. Well, you heard Redo's, you heard his contribution. Sham also read as well. Basically the same thing. That men don't speak because women aren't listening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I got a lot of messages overnight based on the flyer that went up. A lot of women was like, wait, Dominique, what are you talking about? Men don't speak. They don't have nothing to say.
Oh.
That was one of the main messages. I promised myself I wasn't going to, call any of my friends' names, but you know yourself, good morning to you. Yeah, and I remember when Curtis was on the show, one of the days we talked about that nothing box that they say men have, that place of going to nothing.
Yeah.
And I found it very hard to believe that a human being who is having all these experiences, who is living life, counterpart to a woman doesn't have anything to say. I found it hard to understand, to comprehend. I felt like that was like a cop-out.
Yeah.
That was just something that was learned over time to say.
Yes.
Because it's easier to just say that as opposed to actually saying what is really on your mind.
Yeah.
Am I onto something there or not really?
Yes, well, I mean, to establish the foundation of this conversation.
Yeah.
Why men don't speak, we automatically went towards where women are in this equation. So followed why men don't speak is because women are listening.
Yeah.
So we have to establish the foundation. So it seems as though whether men speak or not, it is in the interest of women, right? So all right, so we just establishing the foundation.
Yeah.
Okay, men and women are obviously wired differently. Right? Women are wired to, process emotions and language fluency. Right? So women are actually built to really process emotions outwardly. Men are more compartmentalized. They're more introspection. Right? So they are not wired to just be all emotional and stuff like that. They are more wired to solve problem, more task oriented, and they're very compartmentalized. So you don't think you won't see a man just every thought he speaks. So men interpret and process emotions and feelings internally and compartmentalize. Sometimes they say, okay, I'll deal with that later on, or maybe that is not important to deal with, period.
Right.
Because there's a task or there's a situation that I need to solve in immediate, so that's why it's a slightly different, right? So the question why men don't speak,
right?
Well, we have to also establish communication. What is speaking, right? So what is speaking? Because communication itself is 93%, I believe, non-verbal, right? So men are speaking, right?
So you're talking about body language and
body language, but generally speaking, only 7% of communication is words, actual words. There's a percentage that is how you say it,
right? And
then body language. So most of communication is non-verbal. So men are speaking, men are saying things, right? They're not just only using words.
Okay.
Right? Women use a lot more words to process and to express what they're feeling, what they're thinking, but men use other ways of communicating as well too. So men are speaking, right? So I want to throw this in the mix here at one time because this conversation could go any direction, and because it starts off with men and women, which I usually try to avoid, but we can't avoid this conversation because women are so important to us, right? My question is to you, Dominique.
Okay.
What is the number one love language for men?
What is the number one love language for men?
Yeah.
My goodness. When you were saying, I know this might sound like I'm going around the mountain, right? But I established enough points. So when you're talking about men speaking and, they speak in other ways, I'm in my mind thinking, not actively listening, but I'm thinking now about all the times before when men would have spoken.
Yes.
And I don't know what they said. And what is the language of men? How do you even decipher what's the language of men? And now I'm thinking to myself, do I even understand, man?
Oh, good.
Because you mentioned, the fact that we made it about women, even in this conversation.
Yes.
With the answers that we got, it's about in the interest of women. And I'm like, but how unfair can it now be to one species?
Yes.
And family, I'm processing these thoughts before you, right? How I talk my business, right? Just put on the whole spot. But how unfair to one species can it be that everything about you now revolves around the interests of women? So in terms of, you when you speak, what you're saying, how you're saying it, if you're allowed to say something,
yes.
Even with Redo's conversation. So I'm seeing somebody saying words of affirmation is with men.
Words of affirmation.
Words of affirmation.
So words are important to men. So I'm making that point. I'm making it very clear that words of affirmation is the number one love language for men. Men need words. Right, so I want to establish that. In terms of men communicating and using words, they internalize it so much times before they speak. When they speak, it's not an or maybe. It is a matter of fact. Most men, so after they've gone through that processing, when a man actually opens his mouth to speak, it's because he has already gone through a certain level of processing, right? Because most of the processing happen internally. But for women in particular, they go through their processing outwardly. Out loud. So if you don't hear my processing, you will think when I say something that I'm still processing.
There's no process, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. But the processing has already happened.
Yeah.
And even if it's incorrect, he would have gone through a certain level of processing before he said it. So if it's rejected, then you rejected the entire process that he already went through, right? So, but for women, she's okay with saying something being wrong or saying something out of context or whatever the case is, because there's no judgment on that. Right?
It's a safe space.
It's a safe space. Women get to express.
Yeah.
But
that's unfair. That is so unfair, because I think, and I've been in that situation where I don't want to know you arrive at the answer. Yeah, we talking. I want you to talk. I want you to, I'm trying to, keep it. Yeah. But I want you to talk. I want to hear, what you're thinking. So you have no thoughts on this?
Yeah, well,
those are real comments, real statements that we women make.
The thoughts are happening internally.
God.
The thoughts are happening internally. We are wired different from women, right? So that's what I'm saying. So when he speaks and it is not received after he went through all that processing, that is when he becomes silent.
Because that's very defeating.
It's very defeating.
Wow.
Because your expectation is that he went through some measure of processing before he come to a solution, because his goal is to come to the solution. As soon as possible. That is what that we call that nut in box, and all these different spaces that men try to create in isolation to process certain things. Yeah. So that's what all those things happen. Those moments of stillness and silence is when men go through all those different processes.
This is common knowledge. This is something that we know. Like, people know this.
We speaking about it now.
Because I don't think I've ever, and I'm not knocking anybody who's ever said this before, but I don't think I've ever heard this in this way before. Like, ever at all.
Yeah. So we experiencing obviously a crisis right now, a masculinity crisis now, because there's the traditional man, right, which is the man that will get dirty and be able to conquer the world and bring home the bread and all those different things, and the modern man, which is the one that has to be emotionally available and soft and be able to do all these different things, which is also important. But now there's this cross section where men have to be able to be strong and be
everything.
This superhero, and then you have to be this gentle. So that's why compartmentalizing is so important for a man. Because he has to be this, conqueror, in the world, in the jungle of life. And then he have to be this very soft bear when he comes home. So you have to compartmentalize what happened in the jungle.
That's a lot of work, Jessie. That's a lot of work. I'm seeing a message coming in from Amira. Amira, good morning. She's saying, why women have to make a whole big scene before men can understand? She said, men take too long to process and women are impatient. Girl, we are impatient. I could tell you we are impatient. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine 2 weeks ago, and Jessie, he is talking and telling me of a situation that happened, a story that happened. There is I don't have anything to do after he talks to say that, after rush to an event, after rush to do something. Yet he's talking and I'm like, why is he telling me the story in real time? In my mind, while he's
he's actually expressing himself. He's going through the process, and you can't even appreciate that.
I felt so horrible, and I have not communicated this to him. And he is just telling me the story.
I hope you're listening.
I hope not. He's just telling me the story in real time, wanting to communicate every aspect of the story, even forgetting parts and going back to it. I do that all the time. I go to my friends with stories and say in real time, and male friends, and there's no judgment that is passed to me openly because I'm telling the story in real time. Yet he's talking and I'm like, why can't he just tell me, so what? And I had to stop myself from asking, so what is he doing? Or trying to finish the sentence to hurry him along.
So there's a disconnect with him speaking and you being able to receive just the authenticity of just his thoughts, just
to be present and listen. That is crazy.
That is sad.
That is really sad, and that's what a lot of us women do. I've seen that happen. I grew up in that, and I've seen it happen. Where men do they really are a few words because they are allowed a few words.
There are some things that I don't know if I could say.
I always get in trouble, So I mean, this guy family know me already.
You see, women associate intelligence with linguistics and a man being able to really stitch together fancy words, to get a point across. And I think we lost the beauty and the essence of just pure raw masculinity. A man that is speaking, he don't have to be so eloquent. He don't have to be able to pull together all these really elaborate words to communicate or to be so poetic.
Yeah.
We went through all these different eras of romanticizing the voice of a man and the whole Shakespeare-ness of a man bringing a point across. A man had to really soften everything about himself, in order to share this world with women, right? Which is good, But we know the consequence of that is now that men cannot just be men anymore. Like they can't just be raw. Hey, I don't like that. And that's a complete sentence.
Yeah.
I don't like it. That is not, so now we associate even men's emotions with danger. So now a man having a very natural experience. He's angry. His voice raised a little bit. Oh my God, that is abuse. Abuse is about to take place because a man raised his voice.
Yeah.
He's a threat.
But the flip side is that if I'm feeling angry and I say something elevated or raise my voice, it's not considered.
No, it's not considered danger.
Violence.
It's not considered violence. So a man raising his voice is violence.
Two things I want to say. One, I like the fact that you brought up that Shakespeare type of zone that we operated in, because I got convicted about Hallmark movies.
Wow.
I was a girl, I ain't even gonna lie.
What channel was that anyways?
I used to watch those movies religiously. Boy Meets Girl, From a Small Town. We know the story and we have all the memes about how that story goes. But the idea of, the words, because words, I'm a writer.
Yes.
Words did it for me. So when I watch those movies now and then you go into the real world where the Hallmark guy doesn't exist in the real world because you're not a Hallmark girl and there's not a Hallmark world.
Come on.
Right? But I'm expecting this magic and this excitement and these words, and you are met with actual real people who are having real life conversations with you and who are experiencing things in real life, and because it doesn't match up to that fantasy that you've now created in your mind, that has been validated by the millions of movies that you've taken in, you miss opportunities. I ain't even gonna lie.
You went deep.
I don't have Boaz because Boaz probably was here, and I put him way in the back.
Boaz had to write poems.
Boaz couldn't write. Boaz couldn't string two words together to rhyme. So I say he can't be Boaz.
No, he can't be Boaz.
And Gordon and I have been having these real conversations because there are people, yes, there are situations we'll go through relationships that are, hang-ups, but there are people, good people who have come along the way where I have imposed things on them that if they were to impose it on me, I wouldn't be able to deal with that.
Yeah.
Those expectations that I had, that one, I didn't even communicate with them that those were expectations.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking, how many of the women as well to have done this?
Yes.
How many?
Yes.
And then the other thing is, how do we even begin to break apart that the way we hold, the esteem we hold men in, that prison that we're holding men in, because they can't express themselves in the way that they can.
Yes.
If they get loud or they express anger, they express, real emotions. If they cry, there's a problem.
Yes.
If, they get angry, there's a problem.
Yes.
They communicate, but it's not the words that we want, it's a problem. Yes. So then what we want, man?
Dominique, I could leave the studio right now. I think it got it. I think it got it.
We're going into a zone here. I need help to come out to this zone.
I'm gonna be honest, as a coach, and I do have female clients as well too, especially those that are married, those who are in serious relationships. Many times I say, hey, go home, don't listen to me and not listen to your husband. Don't go and listen to your husband, listen to your significant other. He is actually speaking. And not because I am trained to speak. I'm trained in media and all those different things. I could articulate things a particular way that you appreciate. Appreciate the man that you marry. Appreciate the man that you're home with.
That's a word, ladies. That's a word. Somebody listening, your husband, he's talking to you.
Yeah, and of course it is widespread. Women are attracted to men who are more articulate, men who able to stitch together words. But then guess what? They are deceived by the same men as well too, because these men using the same words and verbiage and all these different romantic things, and the man home, right? He ain't all that thing, but he for you, he fighting for you, he real. Right, so don't get fooled by a man who could just speak so well and all those different things. We really need to start reshaping and appreciating just the simplicity of masculinity.
Yeah, going into some messages, Irma is saying, let's face it, women are very difficult to deal with.
Shout out to Irma.
And she said, word, Jessie, as in you're preaching. Kevo and LaFleur, he's saying it's not that men don't want to talk. It's that the world really gives us a safe space to speak and still be seen as strong. That's important. A safe space to speak and still be seen as strong. Men aren't emotionless, so we're just disciplined in pain. Wow. We've learned to process storms in silence while holding the roof up for everyone else. Yeah. My God. Another one saying, good morning, both in my previous work environment and home life, as I have grown older, the Lord has given me a spirit to listen patiently. Because as you said, we as women realize sometimes the gist of the story, or that we've heard the story before. Also, we are all unique and wonderfully made by God. Have a great day. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, look at this.
Yeah.
I'm rethinking my whole 20s now. Where do we go from here? How do we even begin now to listen to who we have home? Because it's not always, especially in terms of marriage and stuff, it's not just that you want to just replace the person.
Yeah.
You have built a relationship with this person. So how now do you go back to the drawing board and admit, because we as women don't apologize. I spend that out there. We don't apologize. We love apologies, but we don't apologize.
I sat down in the right studio today.
we make food. We will cook, and that's the apology. You're still vexed. You're good. Let me go. That's apologies, right? I've seen that. I've lived that.
Yeah.
So how do we go now and have a real conversation and acknowledge that, my way of thinking was wrong.
Right.
I've been operating from a place that has been wrong.
Yeah.
You've known I've been wrong, and you may not have even communicated to me that I was wrong. You allowed me to live in that space.
Yeah.
Because that in itself may cause issues.
Yeah.
And one of the things I was telling one of my friends is that I don't want to ever be in a relationship or a space where the people around me can't even correct me. That they live and they are so uncomfortable, or they're not actually present or having fun or happy.
Yes.
And they're living in this pretense because they don't want to upset me. Like, I don't ever want to be in a relationship, and those are the words that you hear on a couch in therapy years after being married. Jessie, I think that will floor me more than anything else.
Yeah.
Knowing that, so all this time.
Yeah, it's happening.
And people are living in this all this time.
For the entire life.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
So how as women do we, and also what would you say to men, I guess, to validate them at this point in time? Because there are men who probably listening and saying, but this is why I'm saying, this is what I've been living.
But I'm glad that we're having this conversation. There's a problem. We have to acknowledge that there's a problem. We can't self-correct if we're not self-aware.
Yeah.
So the awareness that men have began to be very silent over the years, that's a problem. Now you're seeing and we spoke about that last week, the competition is fierce.
Yes.
Men are not only competing against men anymore. Men are competing against women in the marketplace. The marketplace was a space where men would be able to conquer and dominate and bring home the bread. Now their competition is women.
Right.
Women sitting across the boardrooms, women sitting down at higher levels than them, which is good. We welcome it.
But they're also bringing the same not listening, the same qualities in the workplace.
Yes, it is complicated.
Yeah.
We have to get back to a place where we celebrate the male voice. We celebrate masculinity. It seems as though that just the word masculinity in itself is associated with toxicity, is associated with aggression, is associated with a lot of things. But I could argue that the love of a man being able to express love and be able to lay down his life for his brother and for his wife and for his family is a love that could almost be unmatched. And so we have to celebrate masculinity once again. We have to give room and space. And I'm speaking to the ladies as well too. And I'm speaking for the men as well too, because men need spaces where they could speak as well too. But for all the women that are listening, because I know that your platform attracts a lot of female listeners, and this is valuable to them. When he speaks, listen. And maybe there's a level of pride and humility that you have to deal with, that you have to battle with in order to say, hey, that's my man speaking. That's my guy speaking. And I have to celebrate that. After again, men's love language is words of affirmation. Women are kingmakers. You know, women get to say, hey, that's my king. Here's the crown. You know, we could work on the articulation. We could don't do manipulation tactics either. You know, don't try to you get to be his support. You get to uplift him. You know, women have that power. I see it in the women empowerment. You know, groups and stuff like that.
Exactly.
You know, so come back to that place where you empower men. I'm seeing women doing it. I want to shout out to the women that using their platforms now to really uplift men. I'm seeing it happening now. So shout out to all the women out there, locally and internationally, that paying attention now and saying, oh no, something went off balance here. You know, and we're hearing a lot of the female voices, but we're not hearing any male voices. Something wrong. You know, how could we participate in that? So I want to celebrate women for doing that and continue to do it. And you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised. I'm glad that you have me here, you know, to speak, and now you listening. You know, so that is, you're already part of the solution already. Bringing men onto your platform as well to have conversations relating to men. Women are talking to women about men. And they're not talking to men about men. And if you're talking to men about men, be prepared to listen. Don't try to correct it. Don't try to fix it. Just listen. We have to figure out, the stats prove that men are suffering. Men are committing suicide at a higher rate than women. Men are going through depression. Men are going through a lot of things that we can't ignore anymore. You understand? So let's make that space. Let's have this conversation more, so that we could create, you know, safer spaces for a man to be wrong too. You know, and if he's wrong, then as brothers and as a family unit, we could uplift him. We could say, hey, no, that's I think you went off there. And we be okay with that.
And I like that you brought up that, because we are not always right. Women, we are not always right. I have to put down the music for that one. We ain't always right, you know, and the same grace, and that's something that you know, God talks about the same grace that I've applied to you. You know, you have to be able to apply that to others. It's okay for you to be wrong. It's okay for you to make a mistake. But in terms of the male, you know, the men around you, it's like they're supposed to be perfect. You know, they're held at this greater standard that you can't even apply to yourself. And we see it all the time. So I'm thankful that you came in for this conversation. I just seen some messages coming in. I want to get this one in from Yashka. Good morning, Yashka.
Blessed Tuesday morning, Dominique and guests. Men don't speak because women don't listen. I agree and disagree, saying biologically women and men are made differently. Women are more express themselves more, and culturally we grow up in a society where men are not allowed to express themselves as they should have, because they were suppressed to being, don't speak, don't cry, don't say, you know, this is how the culture is. And it have women that they would listen, but communication and that listening ear is critical. And it all has to do with the individual and accountability in terms of taking that time to communicate effectively without being judgmental, without being arrogant, without being angry and flaring up tempers and emotions. But this is the society that we live in. And we need to listen as women. We need to communicate without anger, frustration, bitterness. And we need men to speak truth and women to speak truth without the emotions taking over.
Thank you, Yashka. Jessie, I heard what was Yashka was saying. What do you know? What is your response to her?
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, because yes, we as men have been taught to really suppress our emotions, and for good reason, right? The motive was supposed to be good. You know, men being able to control their emotions because they are more stronger than women, right? I want to touch, however, on something I have to mention before we wrap this up, and that is the dimension of intellect.
Right.
Right? We don't talk about the word intellect enough, right? So we made up of different dimensions. Yes, we on Sky, so our spiritual well-being is very important, like our emotional well-being, our physical well-being, our occupational well-being. But what we don't pay attention to is our intellectual well-being. This is a study, right? Being intellectual is being able to understand abstract things. So when we are communicating with each other, and you come into a conversation or of some sort with somebody else, you have to be able to pay attention to every single thing. That is why AI cannot be a companion, right? Because it cannot be intellectual. It cannot take information or abstract information in real time and be able to process it like a human, right? So when I'm speaking to you, I'm watching your eyes. I'm seeing how you blink. I'm watching how you're breathing and all those different things. We have to pay attention to the entire communication process, not just listening with your ears. Communication is just not just verbal. A matter of fact, it's the smallest percentage of communication. So men are speaking, and men have been speaking, and men have been crying out, and men have been doing all these different things to get attention. And I've heard women say time and time again, my husband keep telling me that I don't listen to him. My husband keep telling me that. And I'm like, it is true, because he is speaking. You want him to say more words.
Yeah.
You want him to say more words, and that is not the entire gamut of communication.
Listen to me, I don't have a sound effect for that one, but you want him to say more words, but that's not necessarily communicating more, because you're talking about being present, talking to the person.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, how many of us stop and actually have conversation?
Correct.
And actually watch the person.
Correct.
Right? Because most times, with the woman, you're in the kitchen, you're organizing this, that, you're doing. I mean, it's not all the time you're going to be able to pause and talk.
Correct.
But are you able to sit down and really take in the person?
Yes.
And that's just on a regular basis.
Correct.
For me, I have a lot of conversations in person.
Correct.
So I don't to sit and really be present, and that's a problem.
So that not every smile represents happiness.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why intellect is so important, because when you're expressing an emotion, right? Sometimes they say don't intellectualize an emotion, right? Or don't take something that you could intellectualize and be too overly emotional about it, right? Your intellectual wellness is important, and I want everybody that's listening to do some research on intellectual wellness, because that is where a lot of communication breaks down. That's why a lot of relationships don't last, because of that intellectual bridge, being able to say, he is communicating different from me. I can't expect him to communicate the way that I communicate, or I can't expect her to communicate the way that I communicate.
Yeah.
But we could build our bridge using intellect. We could build our bridge saying, okay, this is an abstract matter. It doesn't mean that somebody is right or wrong, but there's a need for us to break it down into bite size so that we could bring that message across. We could communicate that message across. Not because somebody that have not communicated the way that you don't like it to be communicated means that it has not been communicated.
Yeah.
Right? So those things that men are speaking, could we get better as communicators? 100%. So I'm holding men accountable because women want words, you know. So I'm not going to say, hey, you know, men continue to not to speak, you know, speak out, use your voice, because women love to hear a male's voice, but you know, underneath all of it, right, they really want it. They're just not hearing the voice that they want to hear necessarily, but they appreciate the voice of a male, right? And for women, of course, let's, you know, continue to create that space so that men could use their voice, you know, and don't try to take his voice and bend it and twist it into something that you prefer, right? If that is your man, if that is your husband, that is his voice. Don't put somebody else's voice above him. That's your husband. The only voice above that is God, right? So I really want to encourage you all, do some research on intellectual wellness, the intellectual well-being, because that is where a lot of communication falls apart.
I want to get in one more voice note. There's a message from Paulette. Paulette is saying, good morning, Dominique, and guys, do have a blessed and wonderful day. And there's a voice note from Redo.
Hey, Dom. Morning again. I want to thank you for this conversation you had this morning. I want to the invited guest that you brought there. Hey, buddy, you was on point. You're powerful. This is a powerful conversation that you have enlightened a lot of people. And I see you have enlightened them too, because you have her thinking, and she went back to do some retrospect. All right, I just want to, but I called my wife and I tell her, well, put on the radio 99.5 as, I know she in traffic coming up the road to come out of Spain, but I almost reached to work, so I had to jump off just now. All right, I want to tell her I love you, baby. I appreciate you, and I'm glad that you listen when I asked you to put on the radio. All right, but you continue having a wonderful day. Sky Fam, this has been a blessing to me, and I hope it has been a blessing to you all too. You all have a blessed day. Take care. God is the words, love in the house, and the life coach. Blessings to you, my brother.
Thank you so much, Redo.
Thank you, blessings, Redo.
Yeah, Felicia, she's saying a good discussion when men beat, kick, box. What are they communicating? She's saying when they spend all their time, you know, she's talking about the different things that men would do. And because of the conversation that we're having, and this is not even making excuses for behavior, but I'm saying, you know, if even as like children or women, when you are repressed, when you're not able to express yourself, you know, we lash out. And I'm thinking, what are the things, what are the barriers that have to be put in place or that exists that would cause a man to resort to those things?
Okay, in terms of violence.
In terms of violence, because now you're communicating, but you're not communicating the way that you know you're supposed to communicate. So it's almost like you've reached a point, and you can tell me if I'm wrong. It feels like you've reached a point where you feel like there's no other way.
Okay, so I want to, again, we have to establish, is kicking and boxing and all those different things the only form of violence? Or I don't think that's just a male problem. I don't want to isolate that as a male problem, because a woman shouting and cursing and pelting things as well too is not okay either.
And it's
more acceptable. Right, so I want to make sure I'm draw some balance in this conversation, right? There's a difference between feelings and emotions, right? Feelings are internal, emotions are external, right? Emotions is when you take feelings and you attempt to express it, you attempt to communicate that outwardly, right? So there's something called rational emotive behavior, right? Being able to rationalize feelings and use rational behavior or rational expressions to communicate what you're feeling.
Right.
What do you do when you are feeling hurt or you're feeling this big emotions? What do you do? That is not. It is something that you have to be trained in. It's something that you have to really sit with a coach or sit with therapy. This is where professionals come in. You know, as a child, we just teach them to suppress it. You know, men are driven by the need to conquer. Women are driven by the need for comfort. So women will fight and fight and fight until they're comfortable. Men will fight and fight and fight until they win. You know, they need to win. They need to. That's why plenty. The gaming industry is dominated by men. You know, all these sports, all these different things, because men have a desire to win. They need to conquer.
And those are those outlets,
and those are healthy outlets. So sports is always a good outlet for men to be able to win or to experience some sort of victory. Because that's just built within, you know, the masculine psyche, right? And as I said, women just need to feel as though they're safe and they could lie down and they could jump in the air and land on a soft pillow.
I don't like how you're making that song, but I understand. I don't like how that song is, but I get it, yes.
You know, which is important. So you know that a man have a desire to be able to conquer. Now that we having this conversation, you know, how could you give him space to make him feel like he winning? You know what I mean? If it is he feels depleted and he feels like he's losing, that is why men are moving out of the house. They're spending more time outside the house because they feel like they're winning more outside than they're winning inside. You know, so so emotions, as I said, is energy in motion. It is your feelings that you are now trying to figure out how a way to express it. I want to say this again, as I mentioned before, not every smile is joy or happiness. Right,
and that's why you have to learn. You learn your partner. You have to learn your man.
Correct. So I'm saying this to men. I'm saying this to men, especially for women, because women need words. If you are angry, say, "Hey, I'm upset," or say, "These are the things that are about to trigger particular emotions that is very hard for me to suppress."
Right.
And if you are men, if you have a issue with managing your unhealthy, because there's unhealthy expressions as well too, then get help,
please. And women, the same.
And
women, we have big emotions, and some of us do not know how to control those emotions.
Dominique,
and I cannot be your friend.
Go ahead.
I had a friend once, and I cannot be your friend and hear you talk about the things that you are doing to this man because you can't handle your big emotions. What you're doing is wrong.
Correct.
Because if it was the other way around, it would be absolutely positively wrong.
Correct.
It is absolutely positively wrong. Get help. Correct. There's therapy.
Yes.
There's Jesus and there's therapy.
Absolutely. And I want to. And yes, you need it. And I said this last week, and I have to share it again this week. That's why it's so important for men to be discipled, for men to have mentors, for men to have, because men need men as well too. You know, so I really want to reestablish the need for that. Men, it's okay to desire male mentorship, leadership. That is really important to me. An unsubmitting man is a dangerous man. You know, so a man needs to be submitted. A man needs to be under a level of covering, because he can't be a god unto himself. Right. So men, seek mentorship. If it is you're having a hard time expressing to your significant or other, or whatever the case is, depending on what environment you are in, then you must have a mentor which you must be able to submit those feelings and those thoughts to, so that he could deal with those things before you take it home, or before you take it in the workplace, or before you do it something crazy.
And women, they check the fruit. You know, the friend groups that we in, and when you say something, they agree with everything you're saying. You're not always right. We're not always right. We had to check the fruit. If we all agreeing and we know it wrong, the group had to change. There's mentorship that we could seek to. They're older women in the church. They're older people. We need to sit under those things. In a long time, that was a big deal. Sitting under the woman within the church, the older woman. And I think it's necessary. I think because we've gotten so accustomed to the friends saying, like, for example, I know that I have friends who I could go with, and I could say something to them, and even if I know it's wrong, I know they'll agree with me. Because of how you frame a thing. Woman, you know what I'm talking about, right? Being honest. You know what I'm talking about. But because we know that, we have to be so careful. We have to be so careful. You don't seek counsel from people who cannot give you counsel.
Absolutely.
And women, we need to start seeking counsel. We need to seek counsel. We need to talk to people who know, who are aware of things, who've been through life, you know, to give that counsel. Felicia is saying, she's the same one with the question just now. So she said, this man is really good, love it. And she asked if they are, if you have any books.
Yes, I do have a book.
So you talk to us about that.
Yeah, it's called Ready, Mindset, Go. You could reach me on all social media platforms at Jessie McBarrow, JESSIE MCBARROW. I have one published book so far. I am working on other books. I am working on a book for men as well too. So find me on social media. My contact is 363-7070. If you want to reach out for to inquire about coaching, or you want to work with me on that capacity as well too. I wanna also say to men as well too, especially older men. Look for younger men to mentor as well too. I did something. Shout out to Antonio Bertis, who I worked under at the Empower program. There are a lot of young men that really don't know what to do about life. They snap their fingers. They are an adult, and they're interested in relationships. There are young girls that are pregnant for them, and they need mentorship. Older men, please. I had the privilege and of coaching countless young men. I lose count of how much, both in Trinidad and Tobago. And men, just find a younger, if you know that you're a healthy man, you went through the process, don't take it for granted that these younger men know. It's easy to bad talk young men and say that they this or that, but they need mentorship as much as we needed mentorship as well too.
Yeah.
So I wanna put that call out there for men. Reach out, find one young man, and reach out to him and mentor him. He may not listen, he may not understand the dynamic, especially if you don't have a father figure or anything like that. However, I think we have a responsibility to mentor the next generation.
Yeah, and you plant the seed. That's the important thing as well.
Very
Jessie,
important.
thank you so much for coming through. Thank you so much for giving us your words of wisdom, for the insight as well too. I feel like this was a therapy session. So I have to go home and debrief because, myself, I had to talk to myself about what's going on.
Yes.
Yeah, we appreciate you.
Thank you.
And looking forward to continued conversations as well too. Thank you, Sky family.